Alright, so you want to play TG Muti? So, Titan's Great Mutilate is actually a thing now. For anyone who doesn't know, Titanic Mutilate is a new legendary which was introduced on April 1st. I know it looks like a meme, but I actually think it's pretty good. And I think its power is best explained visually. So first, let's break down what exactly Titanic Mutilate does. This RE has three main effects. 1. You learn the spell Titanic Mutilate. 2. Your Bloodthirst deals 5% increased damage for each combo point present on the target. And finally, Whirlwind triggers your Blood Rage, which in turn triggers your Enrage talent. So the most important effect on this RE is that Bloodthirst gets 5% increased damage for each combo point present on your target. This effect really ties together the spec, but ironically doesn't have that much to explain. Simply put, you want to cast Bloodthirst while you have 5 combo points on your target. But to generate the combo points you need, you're going to want to use Titanic Mutilate. This is because it grants you 2 combo points per cast as opposed to 1, allowing you to quickly reach the 5 combo point maximum in the shortest amount of spell casts. And finally, your Whirlwind spell triggers Blood Rage on cast. This effect is actually really important as it allows you to permanently make use of the Unending Fury talent. In addition, this also allows your Enrage talent to be active 24/7, granting you a sweet 10% melee haste and damage. Now that you understand what exactly Titanic Mutilate does, let's go over how you can utilize it. The main focus of this build is to maximize the damage of your Bloodthirst. And in this build, there are 3 key effects that add the most power to your Bloodthirst damage. Here comes the big one, Blood Surge and Titanic Mutilate. I've already explained how Titanic Mutilate fits into this build, but I'm also going to quickly go over how the other 2 effects, Here Comes the Big One and Blood Surge, work into this build too. Here Comes the Big One is a simple, yet powerful epic RE that causes every 4th Bloodthirst to deal double damage. This effect is incredibly important for this build, and if used effectively will really boost your damage. Blood Surge is a talent that triggers from your Whirlwind casts, causing your next Bloodthirst to cost no rage, trigger no cooldown, and ignore 50% of the target's armor. And by combining these 3 effects, your Bloodthirst will deal 25% more damage, ignore 50% of the target's armor, and then finally have its damage doubled. And if the RNG gods bless you, and you manage to crit, the numbers can get really fucking big. The optimal level 1 start for this build is going to be Battle Stance, Slice and Dice, Heroic Strike, and Blood Rage. The start is incredibly optimized, so allow me to explain why exactly each spell is critical. Slice and Dice is a buff that grants you a whopping 20% melee haste, which is super powerful when applied to 2 slow, 2-handed weapons. Blood Rage is required for Unending Fury and the Enrage talent. Plus, it grants you a ton of free passive rage, overall making it super good for this build. And finally, Heroic Strike and Battle Stance are both essentially powerful passive damage buffs that lack any competitive alternative within the level 1 ability pool. And if you're interested in PvPing with this build, I would say you should drop Heroic Strike for charge, as you will very likely not have enough rage to use it anyway. Moving on, let's talk about the spells you're looking to roll while leveling. Right off the bat, you have to roll Whirlwind for this build, either naturally or through skill cards. This spell is literally required for your rotation, and you sadly cannot play this build properly without it. In addition, you're also going to want to pick up Bloodthirst, but this is less important because you can pick this at level 60. But a spell you should really consider skill carding is either Rock Butter or Windfree Weapon. Of course, neither of these spells are required for your build to function, but they add an absurd amount of power to your build to the point that they're borderline. For you see, Rock Butter Weapon gives you a whopping 200 attack power when applied to a 2-handed weapon, equating to a stupid total of 400 additional attack power when you have 2 2-handers equipped. And as for Windfree Weapon, this effect really synergizes with your build and is great with the epic mystic enchant, Zephyr. Finally, this build heavily relies on having some kind of gap closer, as there are more than a handful of raid mechanics that are heavily taxing on melee DPS that lack any quick way to dash across the battlefield. So if you manage to roll spells such as Blink, Charge, Disengage, and Aspect the Cheetah, make sure to hold on to them because they provide a ton of utility. There are also a handful of spells that are very useful just for boosting your damage. Spells such as Death Wish, Blade Flurry, Sweeping Strikes, Aspect of the Beast, Battle Shout, and True Shot Aura are all handy picks for just increasing your damage. Next up, we have Mystic Enchants. For your legendary Mystic Enchant, you're obviously going to want to run Titanic Mutilate. But for epic REs, I like to take Here Comes the Big One, Counterpoise, and Zephyr. I've already explained why Here Comes the Big One is good for this spec, but as for the other REs, Counterpoise is consistent free stats, and I also take Zephyr because it provides passive attack speed. But if you don't have Windfree Weapon, there sadly isn't very many epic RE alternatives. But if you want to fill that 3rd slot with an epic RE, I suggest taking Blades of Blood or Bear Attack. But honestly, running another blue RE instead is actually good too. And if you somehow manage to get lucky enough to roll both Rockbiter and Windfree Weapon, I would recommend picking up Zephyr and place Windfree on one weapon and Rockbiter on the other. But as for lower quality REs, I like to take Weapon Expertise, Dual Wield Specialization, Improved Whirlwind, Unending Fury, Precision, and Hasty Whirlwind. Weapon expertise is critical in TG builds, as having 2 two-handers leaves you really open to being dodged and parried, so make sure to get a ton of it. Dual specialization is super good for TG builds as a lot of your damage is auto attacks. Improved and hasty whirlwind both lower the cooldown of your whirlwind spell, and you really want to spam this ability as it procs your blood surge and just does a ton of cleave damage. Precision is hit, self-explanatory, and finally, Unending Fury is 3% damage for your 2 main spells. Last but not least, we have talents. For talents, I'm going to split their role into 2 different categories, support and damage. For support talents, I like to take Blood Surge, Honor Among Thieves, Unending Fury, Cut to the Chase, Weapon Expertise, and Sword Specialization. Support talents are unique effects which all work together to create a fluid playstyle. Honor Among Thieves helps you consistently generate combo points, Unending Fury significantly lowers the cooldown of your whirlwind, and Cut to the Chase allows you to refresh your slice and dice. And finally, I also take Sword Specialization, but depending on what two-handers you have access to, you should consider taking the appropriate Sword, Poleaxe, or Mace Specialization. With, in my opinion, Mace Specialization being the best between the 3, as it provides you with the best and most consistent stats being attack speed and armor penetration. And finally, for damage talents, I like to take both the dual wield specializations, Deep Wounds, Enrage, Flurry, Shredding Blows, Impale, and Improve Whirlwind. Most of these talents are pretty self-explanatory. Dual wield spam gives you a ton of offhand weapon damage. Deep Wounds is a unique but great source of damage. Enrage is a consistent attack speed and damage buff. Flurry increases your attack speed. Shredding Blows boosts the damage of your auto attacks. Impale makes your crits do more damage. And finally, Improve Whirlwind further lowers the cooldown of your Whirlwind spell. And that does it for my guide on Titanic Mutilate. I hope you found this video helpful, and find this build just as fun to play as I do. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.